are on Canto 3, Chapter 23, Text 49. We're going to do, I think, 10 verses. So this chapter is entitled Devahuti's Lamentation. So you'll remember that Devahuti and Kardama Muni were having a lot of material enjoyment together, right? Remember that? So now we're going to hear the tail end of this pastime of what happened next. So text 49. Nartana, would you like to read that? And then we can go back to this side.
When she saw her husband about to leave home, she smiled externally, but at heart she was agitated and distressed.
So, do you remember the last verse before that? She had just given birth to 9 female children, all charming in every limb and fragrant with the scent of the red lotus flower. So these like gorgeous and nice smelling babies, right? And now he's leaving. He's getting ready to renounce any of this material entanglement, right? And he's going off. And so she's feeling some distress. Okay, text 50.
She stood and scratched the ground with her foot. She was radiant with the luster of her gem-like nails. Her head bent down. She spoke in slow with charming accents, suppressing her tears.
Okay, so let's pause here for a moment. So in this purport, Prabhupada says that when a woman scratches the ground with her foot, it's a sign that her mind is very disturbed. And I wanted to just pause there for a moment and just comment on this is an example of how we need to study the scripture from a hermeneutical lens, right, with implied intelligence, because this is very culturally maybe relevant. Some cultures, we may not relate to this, like, I don't scratch my toe, right? Like some of us may or may not scratch the ground with our toes when we're feeling disturbed. So this is an example of a statement in a scripture that is more specific relevant, right? And it's a detail, not a principle of bhakti. So I just wanted to draw that out. It's not saying, when Prabhupada says, when a woman scratches the ground with her foot, it's a sign that her mind is very disturbed. It's not a proscriptive statement that all women should do that now to show that they're distressed. It's a description of a certain time period or a certain cultural behavior. So that's text 51.
Shri Devahuti said, "My lord, you have fulfilled all the promises you gave me, and because I am your surrendered soul, you should give me fearlessness too."
Okay, so when you think about all the things that someone might grant us, like if we were to ask a request, fearlessness is really a special thing to have because it sort of takes care of a lot of other categories. If I'm fearless, other things are probably not going to bother me as much, right? So it's a really essence. Like, please give me fearlessness. He was a very exalted devotee, and Devahuti was very aware of that. So she's asking for this blessing that when you leave, there may be like a surging of fears, right? Like, oh, now I'm left without this personality to protect and shelter me, and so I might experience fear. So please, before you leave, grant me fearlessness. It's quite the request. Any thoughts on that? Mm-hmm.
In the modern times, ladies are just as capable, just as independent as men, and they often more than men. So, what can they get from this verse? What should they look for? Obviously, it's hard to relate. They seem hard to relate. So, what's the benefit for ladies this age?
So I think that a lot of I can't speak for all women, right, and all people, but I think that a lot of us in this culture show that we have it all together and we feel very like, oh yeah, I'm independent, I don't need anybody. But underneath most humans, there is this fear, right? Especially the more independent we are, the more individualistic we are in our society, the more fear there is. And the more collective and more communal we are, the less fear there is because we have support systems. So I think that I think most people could relate to this if they really we're self-reflective, like, yeah, actually, I think I have it all together. I have this job and I have all this, but really there is fear of my existence in this world because I realize how one thing could change and I'm suddenly so vulnerable, right? My car could break, now I can't get to work, or suddenly I had a little, something happen in my brain and I'm no longer able to function a certain way, how vulnerable we are, right? So I think most people could apply it by just tapping into that awareness of, just the vulnerability of existence in this world. Does that relate to people? Do you relate to that?
Yeah, fear, I guess, fear of suffering. Besides that, what other fear could we have? And as far as the male protecting the female or whatever, both of my sisters were very successful. Way more successful than me materially. One was a lawyer for 20 years, and the other one, her first job after raising children, back to work after raising children after 12 years was 6 figures, which was still a lot of money back then. So, but when they both had children, they both were around the home taking care of the children, which is natural.
Yeah, I think that there's support that comes in various forms. So I tend to shy away from making statements about a whole group, but I think there is a general pattern that women like to feel sheltered by, even if they have like the economics, resources and stuff, there's a shelter that happens within emotional connection, like community, like support in that way. So whereas as a group, maybe, I don't know, I don't really want to make a whole blanket statement about groups, but that is generally found there, that psychologically women do appreciate having that support in various ways, and it usually involves others. And I think men also would appreciate that, but maybe there's more, as a group, more ability to be individual and not be as afraid without others around. So it's a general statement. Okay, and there's lots of variety within that. So let's do text 52.
My dear grandmother, as far as your daughters are concerned, they will find their own suitable husbands to go away to their respective homes. But who will give me solace after your departure as a sannyasi?
The other thing is we have to remember this is a certain time period and a certain cultural context as well, this particular pastime. So when the husband would go away and be a sannyasi, it was very much the son of if the wife had a son, that would be the caretaker and shelter for that woman. So she's concerned, like, oh, if these daughters are going to go off and get married, right? And then who's going to be taking care of me? So there's a sentence in this purport that I just want to read to you. Prabhupada writes, relief does not mean material comforts. Material comforts will end with the end of the body, but spiritual instruction will not end. It will go on with the spirit soul. So relief doesn't mean the end of, it doesn't mean material comforts. It means the comfort, the shelter of spiritual instruction. And that's what we're really craving. When we're afraid in this, when any of us have fear in this world, we're craving that spiritual solace, right? That anchoring, that comfort that comes from the wisdom of a realized soul to really help us in that fear, the human fears. You know, we talked about in the course that we did, all the different human parts of us that come out. But the soul, when it hears the instructions of a self-realized soul, a devotee of Krishna, it finds such solace in that. That's the real anchor, right? The real shelter from fear. So that's the real relief that she was looking for. She wasn't even just looking for, like, oh, can you just, get me materially situated. She's actually looking for something deeper here, real fearlessness, right? Soul level. Okay, text 53.
Until now, we have simply wasted so much of our time in sense gratification, neglecting to cultivate knowledge of the Supreme Lord.
So she's starting to feel, there's several verses here where there's a lament happening, a regret, like, oh, look at all the time we've wasted. So I think probably everyone in this room can think of a moment where you felt some lament or regret, right? And when it's spiritualized, then it actually has this really powerful, it has potency to the regret. There's some motivation that happens when I feel regret. Oh, we talked about this in the day when we're talking about guilt. Remember we talked about guilt and regret, and it can be a motivator for our spiritual life when we're thinking, oh man, I wasted so much of my time, I don't know what, on Instagram or something, or TikTok, or anything, right? It could be, oh, I was just wasting years like in thinking that I'm this body, or that I was trying to find shelter in all other places in this world, but not really looking to the deep shelter. It can show up in different ways for us, but we can relate to this part of her, these verses as well, with how to feel regret in a spiritual way. Okay, text 54.
Not knowing your transcendental situation, I have loved you while remaining attached to the objects of the senses. Nonetheless, let the affinity I have developed for you rid me of all fear.
So this is another beautiful one that we can apply in our life. If you're thinking about a devotee in your life who really gives you that spiritual shelter, right? Like a mentor or shiksha guru or diksha guru, like you're the person that you really connect with spiritually. And think about that person. Now let's read this again. Not knowing your transcendental situation, I have loved you while remaining attached to the objects of the senses, right? How many of us have loved a devotee of Krishna while still remaining a little attached, right? Very applicable. Nonetheless, let the affinity I have developed for you rid me of all fear. What a beautiful prayer. We can also offer the prayers of these devotees and think about this in our life. Let me the love that I feel for the devotees become that strengthening process, so I'm fearless. Okay, and then text 55.
Association presents gratification with definitely the path that binds the same type of association performed with a same intensity leads to the path of liberation, even one without knowledge.
So in this purport, Prabhupada mentions that when we're near fire, let's see. Okay, so let's say there's a fire going on around the corner, and we just happen to be walking, right? We're on a japa walk, we just happen to be, and all of a sudden, we're like, oh, I feel the fire, I smell it, maybe I feel the warmth of it, I'm near it, and it's a contained nice fire. We're not talking about like a wildfire, we're just talking about like a fire in someone's yard that they're a campfire or something. And we unknowingly walked by it, we're still gonna feel the warmth of it. Just as I would feel the same warmth of it if I knowingly went to a campfire, right? Prabhupada's saying that in this purport. So similarly with association. So if I unknowingly encounter someone uplifting and spiritually inspiring, I'm going to feel the effect of that person, even if I unknowingly stumbled into their company. Just the way I'm going to feel their the power of their Shakti if I'm knowingly going for shelter, right? So it's a very nice poetic way of describing that the effect of being around a great devotee impacts everyone, regardless of whether they happened to come across them or they're choosing to intentionally come across them. Any questions or comments so far? Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah, I was just, you're talking about taking shelter of the devotees, specifically advanced devotees. And yeah, I was just wondering what kind of attitudes do we have to deeper be like shelter? How do we approach this? We want to find deeper shelter.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. How to become sheltered with the attitude that I have, right? Because we might approach someone, but might be very shielded off from feeling their shelter or receiving shelter. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is humility, this willingness to learn and grow and hear and open up to receiving, right? It's like it requires a certain humility. If I approach someone with an attitude of, I already have it all together, I know everything, I know it all, there's an immediate block that happens in my receptivity towards receiving shelter. So humility acknowledges my fragility. It acknowledges my weaknesses. It acknowledges my vulnerable nature, state in this world. That's real humility. It's just reality. It's not like something fake. It's just, here is the reality. I'm a struggling jiva. I really need shelter. I need to learn. I need to hear. I need to receive wisdom from those who've been through this and are beyond, like past me on the path, right? Who can give me encouragement. So that attitude we can see in her verses here. She's like, she's approaching him with a gentleness, an openness, a receptivity, right? And that's what allows that. Any other thoughts that come to you about that question? What else helps? Yes.
When it says association for sense gratification, is certainly this path of bondage of the same type of association perform the same. The person needs a path of liberation, even if performing out knowledge. That resonates a lot with me because I've taken it in two forms: association with just people in general, or even association like as a male with opposite like sex or whatever, like, you know what I'm saying? It can, if it's not properly done, it can be bondage, it can be bad, you know what I'm saying? And that's why, you know, that this path is set up a specific way for you to do it properly, so you can get to that point where you're ready for that, and it's not leading you away from Krishna consciousness, you know? And then like the other way is like associating with like individuals that, you know, throw you off, you know, like that's what I saw in that. And then association with a saintly person, everybody in here is solid, you know what I'm saying? So everybody in here is like-minded. They gonna want for you what they want for themselves. So that's why, what did Prabhupada say on his deathbed? He was like, stick with the devotees. Yeah, that's really important. Like, actually, I feel like this verse right here is like really, really important.
Yeah, great points. So when you were mentioning that first part about association in a way that doesn't pull us away from our path, right? That's what really what you're getting at. It's like we have to have boundaries around our little tiny creeper of bhakti, right? It's like if you think about a plant and it's like new, we're going to put a lot of times, especially in India, you see this where they have a little mesh around the plant because there's monkeys and there's things that eat it, and deer, you know, various animals. So the protection of that little tree or that little bud that's growing. So similarly in our journey, we have to make sure that we're having association in a way that's going to be as conducive as possible to our journey. And that's going to look maybe a little different for individuals here, but the general idea is, yes, being with association, having that protective fence around us, that we can still be kind and caring for living entities as parts and parcels of Krishna. And at the same time, being aware of, here's the limit where I'm not going to talk about these certain things, or I'm not going to interact in these kinds of ways, right? And we learn what those boundaries are in the ashram, and it's very conducive for spiritual life. So thank you for bringing that point up. Anything else that's coming up for you about this? Yeah, you had.
Now explaining trouble taking shelter. We are taking shelter. We can call it something else, but we are following some influencer or TikTok or YouTube. We're taking shelter.
Yeah.
It's when we consciously have to think, okay, I'm actually taking shelter. That's when it's a lot. That's important. Whether it be except YouTube or even our own senses, we're taking shelter, but we have to serve you. Please tell me, but we are taking shelter. It's so natural. Everyone is taking shelter. Nobody's taking. That's such a good point. Yeah, such a great point. And it's so much easier to take shelter when our ego doesn't think we're taking shelter, right? It's not triggering us because we're just doing, we're just scrolling, or we're just following this person on YouTube, or we're just listening and absorbing things, and we're seeking our shelter in what they're saying or how they're behaving, because we don't recognize it. But as soon as, like you said, as soon as we think, okay, now I have to seek shelter of a spiritual teacher, and I have to, all this stuff like the have tos and the shoulds, and all of a sudden our ego goes, and it gets triggered, right? It's like, no, I don't want to lose my independence. So just being aware of that can be very helpful. Like, the mind just needs, sometimes we need to kind of like gently guide it instead of like, what do they say, shooting on it, right? Just being careful to like not trigger that part of the ego that's going to go, no, but just go, wait, actually, we're already doing this already in the regular world. So let me just apply it in the spiritual context.
seeking shelter, and finding, perhaps replacing the shelter I'm currently with the new types of shelters I would like. Right? The higher taste principle. That's real maturity. It's not just getting rid of all the things I'm currently doing, but it's finding, here's the new, let me add Krishna, let me add the devotees, let me add the shelter that's actually going to help me. And then everything else will naturally dissolve, all the other forms and ways of seeking shelter in this world. Okay, and now text 56.
Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate them to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation does not lead him to devotional service, the Supreme Personality of God must be considered dead, although he is weak.
Whoa, very poetic, right? Very profound. So we're going to come back to this and read the purport. And then we have one more verse, text 57.
My Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusionary energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For in spite of having obtained your association, which gives liberation from material bondage, I did not seek such liberation.
So this reminds me a little bit of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, when he sees that the universal form of the Lord, right? He says, "Oh, Krishna, I was just treating you like a friend. I didn't realize who you were." It has similar energy there, a similar kind of tone, like, "Oh, I didn't realize who I was with, and I was kind of engaging." She's saying, "I was kind of engaging with you in all these illusory ways or material enjoyment ways, but I didn't realize what I had in your association." And so similarly, and again, this little bit of wistfulness, right? Who knows what wistfulness means? How do you describe what is wistfulness when you think of it? Yeah, you can look it up. You can look it up if you like. No. Because nonchalant is kind of indifferent, like doesn't matter one way or the other, but wistfulness has a certain tone to it, certain energy.
Having or showing a feeling of vague or regretful loss.
Oh, smile.
Yeah. So, well, I guess nonchalant part or the first part maybe, but the regretful longing is the part I was getting at. Wistful in the sense of I'm wishing something had been maybe different, or I'm wishing I could go back into the past and just tell that person one more time that I love them, right? It has this like longing aspect. Like there's some loss in there, some nostalgic quality, right? And so again, when we feel that in our life, if we feel that in the context of devotees, that is such incredible opportunity, because now I'm suddenly tapping into what the real substance of the soul is, which is that longing for Krishna. That's what keeps the soul going, longing for Krishna. So if I feel that in small ways in my day, like let's say one day when you're about to move out of Krishna house and you start to feel that wistful feeling, or a friend moves out of Krishna house and you're feeling that wistful feeling, that nostalgia, that little bit of longing, that is a beautiful quality to fan it and to feel it, to feel that, yes, I really miss that devotee. I really miss that service I used to have, or I really, not at the expense of our current reality, of course, not getting lost in wistfulness and, because some people can get lost in that flavor, right? Like, oh, all good things were in the past, the good old days, but more just using it when it comes up to recognize, like, oh, I'm starting to feel something for the Lord and his devotees, and this is a beautiful, this is progress. This is what it looks like, right? When I feel wistful. And so she's demonstrating in these verses are really special, because she's demonstrating, first of all, the quality of the recipient to receive shelter, this humility, this openness, this inquiry, this asking for help, right? It takes some courage to open up and go like, wait, help me. I need fearlessness. I need help. I need shelter. And she's also showing us this aspect of regret that is spiritual. I regret that I wasted all this time with you when I could have been talking to you in ways that would really uplift me as a soul, right? So we can meditate on those aspects in our life. They're very relevant. So let's read the text 56. We'll just do the Sanskrit together. Let's sing the Sanskrit together. Okay. Neha yat karma dharmaya na viragaya kalpate na tirtha pada sevaya jivanapi mrito hisa. Anyone whose work, and we can say this together also, anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation that does not lead him to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be considered dead, although he is breathing. Yeah. Amen. Purport. Devahuti's statement is that since she was attached to living with her husband for sense gratification, which does not lead to liberation from material entanglement, her life was simply a waste of time. Any work one performs that does not lead to the state of religious life is useless activity. Wow. Pretty heavy statement. Everyone is by nature inclined to some sort of work, and when that work leads one to religious life, and religious life leads one to renunciation, and renunciation leads one to devotional service, one attains the perfection of work. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, any work that does not lead ultimately to the standard of devotional service is a cause of bondage in the material world. Yagyartat karmano nyatra lokayam karma bandhanaha. Unless one is gradually elevated to the position of devotional service, beginning from his natural activity, he is to be considered a dead body. Work which does not lead one to the understanding of Krishna consciousness is considered useless. So, what do you think of that heavy statement, right? There's several heavy statements. This one here, unless one is gradually elevated to the position of devotional service, beginning from his natural activity, he is considered a dead body. So if you think about the spirit soul on its journey here in this world, it's very covered over by all the layers, right? All the modes of nature, and the subtle body is also part of that, like a byproduct of all of our attachments and desires over time, and just all these layers over the soul. The soul, in a sense, becomes dormant and kind of muted. And it's there, but it's not really active. It's sort of just riding along with the conditioned self. So when suddenly transcendence comes into the picture, it cuts through those layers. It's like if you think about a dark room, and then suddenly, if you've ever had, I know Nandana was really helpful with a lot of devotees on helping them get to sleep early, and she would talk about like having the night out, the blackout windows, and make sure you're not having any lights from anything in your room. And so when I was a few years ago, when we were talking, I got those curtains, those dark, those dark night ones that I can pull down at night. And if they're slightly off to the side, like a little ray of light could come in, right? And I sometimes have thought of that. If there's a really dark room and your eyes get accustomed to that, when a little tiny ray of light comes in, we notice it. Wow, right? It's like, and there's some artists who love to paint. They do these paintings where light is streaming into like sort of a dark setting. Like maybe there's a cave or a prison cell or something like that, but then suddenly light rays. And everyone, when they see that kind of painting, they feel inspiration because they know something greater is coming into something dark, right? Something, some upliftment, some profound, some miracle or some aspect of Krishna's energy is coming in. And so even other religious groups will find inspiration in the idea of light coming into darkness. And in what's the slogan for Back to Godhead?
Right, where there's God, where there's any science, there's darkness, and where there's Godhead, there's light.
Yeah. So nescience is darkness, right? Godhead is light. Where there is Godhead, there is no nescience. Something to that effect. Yeah. So the idea that where there is Godhead, it lights up the darkness. And when there is that lightness of scriptural truth, or Krishna, basically, Krishna coming into the picture. It's going to wake up the soul, the dormant soul, right? It's been riding along. And so therefore we can think, yeah, when I'm not involved in anything spiritual or real to my soul, then it's just kind of like a dead body doing its motions. It's like the puppet moving, but it's not really, there's nothing really happening, nothing really true. And many times this material world is considered illusory. It's not illusory, actually. What is it? It's real, but it's temporary. It's so temporary that it's considered by all the acharyas as illusory, like non-existent. It's fleeting, it's flickering, right? And if you look at old photos of yourself as a little child, you'll see the changes are so drastic, even within several years, right? It's just, time is just flickering and changing. So the reality, the real truth is what the soul is craving, right? That anchor, that solace. So, yeah.
I was just, this verse makes me think that I was thinking about all the things people do to feel alive. Like they jump out of airplanes, they do all these crazy things. I was just thinking how that's a little off. And like we use that word like, oh, I feel alive when someone feels really inspired. Really like they're living.
Yeah. Coming to life. Yeah. So people are trying to find that in various thrills, right? The thrill factor, like because there's the material world can get very monotonous. Same old, and so then they try to find that aliveness factor in roller coasters or jumping out of airplanes or various other thrills that we could create. Yeah, okay, so that's another point. So yeah, to get closer to God in another way. Yeah, because there's also a thrill and maybe like a terror in the thrill, right? So we're jumping out of a plane, we might feel like, now I'm really feeling close to something more, right? Like, who am I seeking shelter from now? So there might be some of that going on as well, especially if someone's more thoughtful.
So in Arabic, there's a term from the Quran, it's Nur ala Nur, it's light upon light. In Surah 24, verse 35, it says, God is the light of the heavens and the earth, and his light is like a niche within a lamp, and a lamp within a pearly white star. Essentially, also Krishna says, Shukla Krishna Gavita, he said there's two ways of leaving this reality: light and one in darkness. One who leaves in light never comes back, and one who leaves in darkness comes back.
Yeah.
This reality is illusory and temporary because the brain tells us it exists. It's quantum, or that has to do with the way we perceive light bouncing off of stuff. It's there, but it's not there. That's the weird part about it.
Yeah, and you're talking about a lightness that is, we're not talking about the light, the material light here, right? We're talking about something more, because someone may die in a dark room, but their consciousness could be filled with light, right? So we're talking about a real light that's happening here. Not, I mean, the light that comes from the radiance of Krishna, and the spiritual world is described as a place full of light. That doesn't need electricity to light it up. It's a planet that doesn't need any outside source to light it, or it's illuminating from its essence.
The true reality.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So I want to talk to you about this statement that if our life is not connected to spiritual activity, then it's a dead body or it's useless. And what about the fact that we have to do so many mundane activities, right? In our day-to-day life, we're having to go to school or work or brush our teeth or floss or drink water and all these mundane things, right? We have to, after we're done with school, then we go and work and we make money and we maintain a property and a family and all these things, right? So I was reflecting a lot on this because someone might, this is why it's so important to read the scripture as an overall, right? To not take one sentence out of context and apply that and make that your motto. Like, oh, that one thing is going to be my mission now, and it could end up becoming fanatical, right? So the statement that all activities without being connected to Krishna are useless. Okay, now I'm going to apply that, and that's going to be my mission of life, and that means I'm going to drop out of school. What else could it look like? It could look like I'm going to maybe walk away from my family, right? All the things, yeah, like.
feel like that one statement can be used in many terrible ways, you know? So like anybody who doesn't, know Krishna as this person as, a deadbeat suit or something, like saying out, if we look at that as like an absolute statement, it can be very, divisive.
Really good point.
Very,
Yeah.
very careful and stuff like that.
So not only can it harm ourselves in our journey, but it can we can end up using that to harm the others around us. It can create depersonalization, right? Not lack of compassion. It could feed all these things. So that's why it's so important to take a sentence like this and understand it in the context of the scripture as we learn it and study it. And we'll see that for every statement, there's a balancing aspect, right? Because Krishna consciousness is all about finding balance for sustainability. I so appreciate Kalakanta Prabhu's emphasis on that. Finding a way to practice sustainably. So Prabhupada wanted us to apply our intelligence to this, and we have to find the word here. There's the word in the purport. There's actually two words here that will help the understanding of these statements. I'm not finding it. Oh yeah, here. Any work that does not lead ultimately to the standard of devotional service. Ultimately being a keyword, and another keyword, unless one is gradually elevated to the position, right? So ultimately and gradually. Those are the key words that we can't forget about when we're hearing statements like this. So ultimately means what? It means Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. Ultimately, my goal is unalloyed, unconditional. I'm running to Krishna only, nothing else material matters. That is the ultimate goal. But as I'm a living entity in this world and I have to follow my duties, right? Krishna also says that in Bhagavad Gita, you got to follow the duties of your life. He's telling Arjuna over and over. You can't just reject it and renounce it artificially. Then gradually, Prabhupada said so many times, there was a word search, I don't remember how many, hundreds something, Krishna consciousness is a gradual process, gradual, right? So those things balance off. If we have any tendency, I know Krishna House is very sustainable and healthy version of applied spiritual life, but early in our journeys or early in the context of a social group, there's often this tendency to be very fanatical, fundamental, right? And we see it in the world, in all religions. It's like grabbing a statement and then just being very black and white with it and being kind of ruthless, and it can harm all of us. So that was the first point I wanted to make, is just applying our intelligence to this. But then when we're looking at the actual activities of our life, how do we practically connect quote unquote mundane activities with Krishna? How do we do that? Yes.
We can view them as a service, but also like as a duty, like something that we do because it needs to be done, and without and realizing that we want to be able to do something like that in service, and so it's not making it like, oh, I have to do this and then make a big deal about it. It's like, no, this needs to be done, and this is a service, and leave it at that.
Yeah. And can you give an example of an item like that, or a activity like that?
Yeah, like going to work to make money to feed the kids.
Okay, so that's a very practical example, right? Going to work to make money to feed the children. And like you said, we can see it as a service, and we can also see it as just a duty of what I'm meant to do here in this world. And of course, the highest perspective is as a duty for Krishna ultimately, right? I just want to touch on that briefly, because there's sometimes when we're doing something like working, or if we're studying for a test, let's say we're at the job that you're talking about. Let's say we're at the job and we're making the money, but in that moment we have to create a report, and it's very complicated. We have to think about numbers or whatever, writing good paragraphs. And am I going to, in that moment, may I or may I not, it's going to vary, but a lot of people can't multitask. It's actually a known fact that our brain doesn't it jumps from thing to thing, but it doesn't simultaneously do two things at once, although we might think we are doing two things at once. So I might think in that moment, well, I'm not being Krishna conscious because I'm not in the work itself thinking of Krishna. I'm just thinking about numbers and I'm punching out and I have deadlines and I'm thinking about my boss and how, right? So there may be many hours in my day where I'm not consciously thinking of Krishna. I'm thinking about the numbers. And so what do you understand of that? What is that? Does that mean we're failing in applying this principle of Krishna consciousness?
From where I understand, armies go to war, the orders go to war. What was the ultimate goal? Is it for me to support the temple?
Yeah.
Support my spiritual family, support my role in devotees, and devotee kids? What's the goal?
Yeah, so that goes back, yeah, so going back to the point that we had, that the overarching mission has to be clear of why I am where I'm at and what I'm doing. In the day-to-day, moment-to-moment activities, I might be full on applying my brain to a very mundane task just to get that to be very focused. Like when I'm driving, I might be very focused on the traffic in front of me. And I may not, until I'm at 100% pure devotee, I may not be able to think of Krishna in that particular moment. But the overarching mission of that experience is, we know very clearly, this is a service to Krishna. And this is where intentionality comes in, right? Applying before I start my day and when I end my day, or before I start this meeting and at the end of it, those are opportunities to go, okay, Krishna, I'm doing this for you. Before I start my mundane work day, Krishna, I'm doing this for you, right? Before I go, it might be something here in the ashram. What would be an example in the ashram? Maybe laundry, right? I'm gonna go do my laundry for you, Krishna. Why? Because we need to have a clean environment that's going to be conducive for my spiritual life. Everything can be connected. Brushing my teeth can be connected. Taking a shower, right? Because they facilitate the mode of goodness, which is then going to facilitate my spiritual journey. The only problem with activity is when we're not able to find a clear connection of how we can help us in our spiritual journey. And then we're like, maybe I need to talk to a mentor. I'm doing this mundane activity and it's not really applicable, right? Did you say slaughterhouse? Oh yeah, that'd be an extreme example. Yeah, extreme example. So there's some situations we just don't want to be in. But generally we're talking about more like mild examples of things. But let's say, for example, if I do yoga, if a person does yoga, somebody might think, well, I'm going to be doing yoga and it's all about me and I want to show off my body and like, look how great I can do this headstand and I'm taking photos for my Instagram and I'm feeling all good about myself. And it's all ego. It's just ego. It's just an egotistical act. There's nothing about it that's connecting to myself as a soul. But let's say I'm doing yoga and my intention is I'm doing yoga because I want my body and my mind to feel peaceful. Why? So then I can practice Krishna consciousness in a peaceful mind, can chant more clearly. I can be kinder to others, maybe, right? Now, my mind is always thinking of exceptions to things because that's the way my mind works. But someone might question and go, well, then I could kind of find loopholes for everything that I want to do. Like, well, I could kind of justify, right? I could justify activities like, I'm not going to give an example of activity, but I could think of something that I like to do just because I like to do it, but I'm going to sort of make it sound like it's related, right? I'm going to, like, I really want to do it for myself, but I'm going to find a way. So what do we do in that situation? In that situation, we need to have a trusted person in our life that we can check it out with. And that's where humility is required. Let me lay it out and say, okay, what do you actually think? Am I really just being genuine here, or do I really just want this for myself? And if we're willing to hear the answer, it's not always easy, right? So checking in with a mentor to find out whether my motive is really to spiritualize this activity, or if I'm really just using spiritual life to justify my material engagement. And I might find it really uncomfortable to ask that question. So Prabhupada would often talk about Krishnaizing our life. Krishnaize, it's a nice phrase that Prabhupada used. And what it could look like is, it could be something very direct, like I'm going to add Hare Krishna while I'm chanting. I'm going to chant while I'm walking or something. That can be a very direct way. but it can be more indirect. Like, let me offer this work day to you, Krishna, because I'm maintaining my body. Maybe I have a family and I'm maintaining these souls. Maybe I don't have a family and I'm maintaining this existence, this body. And that in itself is a service. Why? Because maintaining the body, it's my vehicle to offer service. Right? So it's very, it's a little step back from being direct, but it's still there. Even more indirect is, Prabhupada said, he was so generous. Krishna and Prabhupada were very generous. Prabhupada said, he's actually quoting Krishna. He says, Krishna says, Rasoham apsu kaunteya, any liquid thing, the taste which attracts you, that I am. Even if you're a drunkard and you're fond of tasting wine, I should recommend that you simply think, this taste of wine is Krishna. That will make a yogi of you. That will make you the greatest yogi. If you simply think, I'm tasting wine, oh, very nice taste, this is Krishna. So this is further back, right? We're talking about the closest to the further back. So most far back is like, I'm totally enwrapped in material energy, but somehow or other, let me apply Krishna to this, right? I'm watching a mundane movie. Let me see if I can think of how this philosophy can apply to Krishna, right? So try to Krishnaize our mundane experiences to the best as possible. And again, it's not justifying. It's not saying, oh, well, I can just drink wine now because I can connect to Krishna. That's not the point of it, right? So so just being careful that we don't use the philosophy to justify our material experience, but using the philosophy to help uplift our material experience, right? It's a very fine dance, finding that balance. And I'd just like to wrap up by saying that while we're going about our day, we can also be in a prayerful mood, especially if our day is very mundane. And we can be prayerful and think, okay, Krishna, oh Radharani, please help me to remember you. Right? Please help me to uplift my consciousness today and let this day be not just a meaningless day, but let it be something of substance. So I saw, Gopal Prabhu, I saw that you had a comment. We'll wrap up here with a comment or question.
It's just a statement about multitasking.
Oh yeah.
I agree with you. The proof is, I don't know if anybody watches TV now. When you watch the news, then there's little captions going down at the bottom. Try to pay attention to both of them at the same time.
Oh yeah.
You can't do it.
Oh yeah, that's such a good point. Or if you're trying to really watch somebody do something, it's hard to hear what they're saying. You know, like sometimes you're like, whether you're seeing their hands do something, it's like, yeah, great example. I wanted to add something that I just realized I missed, is that the great devotees of Krishna, the pure devotees, they are able to have Krishna there constantly while they're going about their days. Krishna is constantly in their consciousness, right? So when I was talking earlier about not being able to multitask Krishna with our mundane activity, that's for the early stages of bhakti, right? We're trying to apply it and it can feel artificial and disconnected sometimes. But ultimately, the goal is that Krishna permeates our entire existence and nothing becomes separate, even when I'm in traffic, even when I'm working at a meeting, because Krishna has become such a part of my entire existence. And so the way to get there is just to fill the gaps with Krishna more and more, right? So the gaps they're less like this and they become smaller and smaller. The times where I'm not with Krishna become smaller and smaller. And so it's a gradual process, but that's the object. Yes, we'll take one more.
Hare Krishna, it's really good. I understand that what the point you said about gradually we will ultimately we need to like go to near to the God. That's the spiritual like our soul. My question is always like that. Is suppose if you are alone, you cannot achieve more. If you are in a group, if you are as a unit, you achieve more. For example, the Krishna movement, I'm coming here more and more. You get a more of that. But if you are alone at home, just alone doing all those things will not work. Can you explain how that can be like I cannot do alone Krishna consciousness, why? Because mind is very wandering here and there. But with the people, with us as a unit, it works. So can you give which is a better, or how can we achieve? Is it just with me like that? It's happening, thinking that as a unit it works, as a single it will not work.
Yeah. Has anyone else experienced that when you're alone? It's harder. It can be, yeah. So I think most of us can relate to what you're saying. And Prabhupada, that's why he created a home for us to practice Krishna consciousness together. And the principle is very simple. It's that Humans are social beings. And no matter who we're with, we're going to start to imbibe the group dynamic. We're going to start to imbibe the energy or the vibes of the people around us, so the moods or the goals or the visions of the people around us, right? We're not insular living entities. Humans are meant to be in collaboration with others. That's where we're at our best, when we're in community. So when we're alone, what are we with? We're actually not alone. We're with our brain and our mind, right? And so then we're like having to deal with all that, and it's just like so loud. But when others are there, our mind, our own brain and mind can get a little muted, and we can start to pick up on the energy of everyone else and their determination to practice and their inspiration, and we can help each other. When one of us is a little low and the other one's high, we can, the high meaning like feeling uplifted, then we can help each other. Like, we're gonna sometimes have ups and downs, but there's always gonna be someone who's having it up while we're having it down, and they can help us, right? And vice versa, we can help them. And so that way we're all staying up, gradually all going upward together. But when we're alone, it's just like ups and downs, just so much gyration of the brain and the mind. It's a lot harder, yeah, especially in Kali Yuga. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And we will now together have breakfast, and even while we're eating, we can find uplifting conversations. So Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.